Hello and welcome to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and I hope that you're having a wonderful weekend wherever you are. Thank you all very much for tuning in. And as people join on the live stream today, let me just say that I'm always excited to have these conversations with all of you, whether you catch this on the replay or whether you're watching live here on Enlightened World Network. Today's subject matter is really beautiful. It's really basic. It's foundational, fundamental. I don't know, name the adjective that you want to go along with a fundamental foundational principle of truth and reality. Nothing more and nothing less. We're looking today at the obvious. Now, before we work with today's idea in the workbook, we're going to be doing lesson 39 specifically today. Let's talk about the obvious. Many spiritual traditions say that the truth, the ground of all of our being, love, life itself, is so obvious that we miss it. It's so obvious that we overlook it. And, well, does that speak to your experience? If you think about it, it's true. If you really deeply consider this, it's very true because we get carried away in the world. We get carried away in social media. We scroll the internet, sometimes without intending, for long periods of time when we know that we need to be actually doing something else. We get caught up. Why? We are habitually conditioned, attenuated to behave a certain way. Spiritual practice shows us that this is a distraction, quite frankly. All of this is an elaborate veil, if you prefer that term, a smokescreen, if you like that term, to keep you from looking at the obvious, patently, blatantly, 100% absolutely obvious truth of your being. Fundamentally, right? It's so obvious that we miss it. So exercises like Workbook Lesson 39 in A Course in Miracles help us to pay attention. The more we pay attention, the more we see through the smoke screens, the more we see what needs to be released in our own life. This will come up for us, things that we need to move on from, release, forgive. All of our drama and conditioning, because where we're all headed is where we've always been. We're headed for the realization of our own being. And we've never gone anywhere. This is the beauty of something being so obvious that we miss it, is we're coming back home, so to speak. We discover, once we've arrived, that we've never left. This is a beautiful thing that I'm happy to share with you right here, right now. And I'm happy that you're joining me, catching me on the replay. Yeah, this is very, very foundationally important stuff here. All right, lesson 39, my holiness is my salvation. All right, we've looked at all kinds of deep level foundational ideas about our holiness. In other words, who we are. in A Course in Miracles, it's the Son of God. In other words, the extension of God, which means like extends like. That means one with. Mhm. One with, not separate from, not inferior to, but one with. Now, the ego, right, our own conditioning, our psychological construct wants us to panic about that, and we develop concepts in the world like sin, which does not exist. How can I say this? Because God has no ego to be offended. How can you then give offense to perfect love that knows only itself, recognizes only itself, not what we deem to be in the world our own shortcomings, our own judgments? This is a very important lesson today. First sentence: if guilt is hell, what is its opposite? The answer should be pretty clear, right? If guilt is hell, what is its opposite? If you don't believe that guilt is hell, well, that's one thing. And people don't in the world, right? We feel guilty about things. We feel afraid about things. And what do? Well, it becomes part of our self image, our self construct. We make a thing out of it. We make a thing out of grudges that we may hold against a particular person. For example, could be a parent, could be an ex-spouse, a former partner. And they become part of our reality because we choose to make them a part of our reality. And that is a huge limitation, isn't it? It's a huge limitation that all human beings put on themselves. We're trained, conditioned to do that. Spiritual practice is reconditioning, if you prefer to think of it that way. We're training our minds, we're training ourselves to see what really is. Guilt is hell. Why? Hell is separation. What is its opposite? What we would call heaven, love, right? Joy. And I don't mean joy that's fleeting, that lasts 15 minutes. I mean the continuous sense, the continuous experience of joy. That's what we're referring to here. Not something that has a finite shelf life, a finite beginning and an end. If guilt is hell, its opposite is heaven, it's love. Now, we're taught in a number of religious traditions. I'll just use myself as an example. At Hoffmantown Baptist Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico in the 1980s, yeah, I'll just name it. Why not? I was taught and fed the belief, and maybe many of you can relate to this, that hell is a place. This was the belief, the attitude that was propagated is that hell is a place where if you do not behave in a certain way, if you do not, and in this case was accept Jesus Christ into your life as your personal Lord and Savior, absolving you of all sin, with an emphasis on sin. Yeah, if you don't do that, then you're going to this place when you die, not right now, but when you leave the physical body, you're going to this place called hell. Okay, fire and brimstone, maybe, I don't know, hell is described different ways in different spiritual traditions as a realm. And in Tibetan Buddhism, they have hot hells and cold hells where you're trapped under ice. Okay, well, and then we have the popular depiction of a bunch of people standing around drinking coffee. Well, they happen to be standing in excrement. Yeah, say a different word that I'm not going to say here on the network. They're standing around in feces, drinking coffee, and then a voice says, okay, breaks over. These are different images that we get of hell. What happens, and what happened to me as a kid, is I became deeply fearful of that. I did not want to go and fry and burn and boil or have to take brief coffee breaks and then put my head back under a floor of fecal matter, yeah, for an eternity. I didn't want to do that, right? Nobody wants to do that. So why do we propagate these images in people's minds? It's fear. It does nothing to people but make them fearful, but make them feel guilty for transgressing. This is not what God is about. If this never resonated with you growing up, as it never, ever resonated with me, so be it. That's good. That's a good thing. Because in reality, guilt, fear is hell. If you are feeling guilty and fearful right now, this is hell. Another way to look at this, hell is separation. A sense of being separate is hell. A sense of being united and joined is its opposite. Heaven. Heaven is not, by the way, a place with pearly gates and a shiny lawn under which rivers flow, that sort of thing. Okay, well, maybe you have that experience, maybe you don't, but it's not a specific place where we go when we leave the physical body. Life is ongoing. It's given by God as we have been created. It's life, it's continuous. That's why certain Eastern traditions, in particular, have a fundamental belief, a foundational belief in past lifetimes. Whether you believe that or not does not make actually any difference whatsoever. Just even if you don't believe it, entertain the idea that life is continuous, does not have an end. Yes, the physical body has a finite end. We leave it behind. We leave it behind and move on. So while we're here, let's use it, as the Course suggests, as a communication mechanism to do the work of the Holy Spirit, to step up in our lives, to teach in whatever way that looks like for you, to show up, teach, and lead, because there are, and the Course tells us repeatedly, there are people that will listen and that will resonate with only your message, just you. Would you leave them in hell? Would you? By not answering the call, this is what happens. We've all had moments in our lives up till now where we have refused the call, which everyone hears. Few answer, right? It is not like your neighbor across the street has never heard the call to awaken. It's not like your mother-in-law never heard the call either. She did. She did. We all do. All of these ideas are obvious. This is why I wanted to lead off with a few words about how we overlook the obvious. Truth is quite simple. We ourselves are the ones that complicate matters. We complicate them in many, many different ways. And needlessly. With spiritual practice, we begin to see how needless all of this really is. And there's no need for us to delay either. When eternal happiness is right in our grasp. We're on the threshold of that, on the doorstep of that, so to speak. Why delay any longer? I know you're asking yourself this question because you're watching this live stream. Yeah, you could be watching anything else, even if you're catching the replay. Here you are. Ask yourself, are you ready? Are you ready to answer the call right now? Right? It's loud and clear. You'll notice as we go through the workbook, and today's commentary walks us through this as well, that we're not concerned with complicating matters in the workbook. Guilt is hell, heaven is its opposite, love is its opposite. In other words, you, your holiness, are its opposite. Okay, you are the answer to every question that's ever been asked and ever will be asked. You, not ego you, but the real you are the answer. If this does not immediately fill you with joy, that's all right. The workbook, as always, invites us simply to practice the day's idea for what it is. Maybe you don't believe that guilt is hell. All right, if you don't, you don't. Practice today's idea, and the day will hasten where you recognize that, in fact, it is. That a world full of separation and political strife and pandemics and fear and suffering and neighbors turning on neighbors and people just behaving badly, yeah, that is hell. Sense of not being home, who we really are, is in fact hell. That is the Course's definition. So it's not a place where you go and you fry, boil, and burn, nor is heaven a place where you go and eat bonbons all the time. It's actually something quite different and much more fabulous than that. Nothing against good bonbons and sitting on the couch or something like that, right? Nothing against that. It's just, well, it's a much more powerful experience. So one thing that is really worth emphasizing here today is that Workbook Lesson 39 spends some time reassuring us that, yes, our holiness is the salvation of the world. It's also our own salvation. This is the lesson. My holiness is my salvation. You cannot be excluded from that. This is an important point because when we talk about forgiveness in A Course in Miracles and spirituality in general, people tend to have a hard time forgiving themselves. Why would you want to leave yourself out of that equation? You're not a sinner, okay? You are not a sinner. You are not deserving of punishment, of being struck from on high with a thunderbolt, of being cast into the pit with raging fires and gnashing of teeth, all that fear-mongering stuff, because that's exactly what it is. It's people that were afraid writing about something that made them afraid, and ripple effect makes other people afraid. If you stand in truth without fear, what happens? Ripple effect. Even more powerfully, people begin to wake up. They begin to have courage, yes? They begin to see that the fear and the guilt are unnecessary. Your holiness is your salvation as well. You are included in this. How can you not be? Okay, a couple quick words before we take some comments and questions here today. I'm on paragraph 8 here in the commentary, lesson 39, if you're following along or you look at this later, it talks about how we practice this idea according to the workbook. And on these live streams, they're very short, as you've noticed, 15 to 20 minutes. I don't spend a lot of time on the day-to-day how to do the idea for a reason is that you can look at that yourself and you'll do the practice periods as best you can, right? If that means that you skip the day's idea entirely because you got carried away, so be it, right? You can come back to it tomorrow or just continue on tomorrow, right? Always come back to it. It's like getting distracted in meditation. We're instructed, okay, well, if you're winding up thinking about the Super Bowl or tomorrow's lunch or something like that, then just bring your attention as soon as you remember, right? As soon as you become aware that your mind's racing off, just bring your attention back to the matter at hand, to the object of meditation, whether it's your breath or a mantra or a bodily sensation or sound, something, right? Something. We look today at what disturbs us, and the italicized statement is really powerful. My unloving thoughts about blank are keeping me in hell. My holiness is my salvation, and you fill in the blanks with whatever occurs to you. My unloving thoughts about politics are keeping me in hell. You could even be more specific than that if you wanted. You could insert the individual name of a politician if you would like, or a political party if you would like. Okay, are you having an unloving thought, fear, guilt, anger, rage, frustration, hostility? Pick the adjective, they're all fear thoughts, right? My unloving thoughts about someone or something are keeping me in hell. My holiness is my salvation. And we just scan our mind. We're all of us, bound to come up with several different things about which we are having unloving thoughts, or, of course, about whom we're having unloving thoughts. This is how we practice today's idea. All right. So, as always, I'm having so much fun sharing this experience with you. And it's just so important that no matter what your work world looks like, no matter what your life looks like and how you've structured your time, that you take the time out that the workbook suggests, that a meditation practice suggests that you take. It's just so important to work on your own spirituality. Why? Because when you answer the call, when you stand up in truth, not your truth, it's all of our truths with a capital T, truth, the nature of our being. When you stand in truth, it has a tremendously positive ripple effect on everyone around you, on the world around you. That is why we're here on Enlightened World Network. We all know this. We all know this. It is to help spread and to share love, to extend love in Course in Miracles terms, since this is a live stream specifically about the Course. That's what it's all about. So hello, Deirdre and Susan, hello, how are you? And yeah, is any low vibrational energy considered hell? I would say yes, right? And then we tend to label vibrational energies as high, right, or low, and with obvious examples. Love is a high vibrational energy, right? Joy, spontaneous joy, and laughter is a high vibrational energy. And then someone that's comes into a room, they're depressed, maybe they're sad. That's a lower vibrational energy. Yeah. Well, we have low vibrational energies in our lives. Why? Because we're feeling separate. Anything that's not the positive energy of love is, in fact, hell. Anything that is not of God is of the ego, which is the same as hell. Yeah. I mean, it's really quite simple. It looks like there are gradations in there, right? But as the Course tells us, quite often there is no order of difficulty in miracles, meaning once we orient ourselves toward God, toward love, that actually solves all the problems. We are the answer to every question we've ever posited, ever, and ever will. And if you're asking questions right now, you are the answer to that. Maybe we can be a little bit more specific than that, but yeah. So heaven's like a state of consciousness. Yeah, it's more of I would say it's more of an experience, right? I mean, it's not necessarily a place that you go to. In fact, it's not. When you die, you don't have to die, right? You don't have to leave the physical body in order to have this experience. It's available to all of us right now. If hell is available to all of us right now, and we're in it because we're having unloving thoughts about somebody or something, then heaven is equally available to us. And we must elect that. We must choose love. At every moment of every day, we have the opportunity to choose. Thankfully, we have free will, which has never left us. We've never lost the ability to make a choice. Even if we say, okay, this is all bogus and I don't want to go there, that's a choice. Yeah, you've made a choice to put this off. For how long? Well, I don't know. We don't know, actually. It's up to you. So thank you all very much for tuning in here today. This is a daily live stream, so I'll be back here tomorrow. And I want to just, again, thank you so much for your kindness to yourself and to everyone in the world here for turning up, paying attention to this, and especially above all else for your practice. That is, in fact, the best offering that one can ever make, is their own practice, their own work on these ideas. So thank you all for that. I will see you back here again tomorrow.